Hi guys, this is Massey with the Cashflow Diary, and I'm glad that you have taken the time to invest here, and I promise to produce a return. Now, I don't know how big of a return, but here's what I will tell you. We're gonna go over some of my largest mistakes, and those largest mistakes have literally cost me millions of dollars, and that's millions, and that's also with an S. So that's 7 digits. And I wanna share that information with you, not because I'm necessarily like, ooh, wow, look at all the big blowups that happened, but most importantly, that I believe because we were willing to go through the mistakes, we now have the benefit of being able to turn those mistakes. We get the benefit to be able to profit from them, and more importantly, by sharing them with you, you have the opportunity to profit from them from the beginning, because experience can be one of the best and most efficient teachers, and that's exactly why you're watching today. So I'm gonna do my best to make you more efficient from the beginning, so therefore you don't do some of the largest things that I have done. We're gonna shorten those learning curves, make it easy for you to be successful from the beginning, and as you watch all the way through, I think you'll understand where many of the things that I come up with come from. Now, some of you probably don't even know who I am yet, really. So if you permit me, I'll wanna take just a small little smidge of time and share with you some of the things that, like how we got started, and more importantly, the things that have happened to us along the way that I think will help you understand my perspective, and more importantly, the types of lessons that you can learn, not only from this webinar, but from all the things that we do here at the Cashflow Diary to make sure that you can be successful. A few short years ago, my wife and I were in a situation in which many would call less than perfect, and by that I mean the following. My wife was suffering from a condition known as hyperemesis. Now, if you're like me, when I first heard it, I didn't know what that was. I thought it was, just a confusing term the doctors made up to sound smart and charge a lot of money. What it really means is that she could not consume something as simple as bread or water while pregnant. She couldn't eat or drink. Let's call that stressful. One day, to blow off steam, I went to play volleyball. I went and played volleyball. I jumped to spike the ball, landed on a guy's head, and punctured my lung. I was born with asthma. When I punctured my lung, I developed a condition known as pleurisy. Now, it meant the combination of the two plus a drug interaction, I could not walk and talk simultaneously without fainting. So here we are, my wife, she can't eat or drink, and I can't walk or talk. We're quite the pair at that moment. All of this leads to many different things. I learned a very painful lesson that being self-employed means if you don't go to work, you don't eat. Many of you may know about that lesson. We learned it so well that we started having to squat in bank-owned property. Our primary residence was foreclosed on, so understand that. I didn't really know where we were going to stay. We had a credit score of 398, and we couldn't put $75 together. It was around that time a friend says, hey, you should become a real estate investor, which that's the natural choice, right? Here's what we did. We listened. We didn't let what we didn't have stop us, and we moved forward anyway to find out, could there be a possibility around that corner? We gave ourselves a shot. In doing so, we learned that there was a way to do real estate using none of our own money and credit. And it took a while to get started and figure out all the intricacies and things, but what ended up happening is we closed on a property even while we were still squatting in bank-owned property. So that was interesting, to say the least. 3 weeks after that, we did another 11 transactions, and since then, we've gone on to do hundreds of transactions in many different states. We currently have a portfolio that spans hundreds of units across many different states, 1 commercial property at the moment, as well as a cell phone tower, and we're working with some partners to build a resort. So all of those things started from a position which most people would consider disadvantaged. However, having no prior experience, no prior background, no understanding really of real estate, that left us open to making a series of a number of mistakes that I want to share with you. Because I believe that by sharing them, you get the opportunity to learn. I don't know if you've ever read a biography, maybe the Diary of Anne Frank or Benjamin Franklin's diary, or any of those things. You learn so much from the experience of others. And I want to take a moment to share with you some of my most valuable lessons from some of my largest blunders. And I believe that as we go through this, you'll be able to benefit as well, and it'll hopefully lessen the fear, help you take more action, and give you a foundation from which you can begin your own real estate career. So let's get started. When we look at number 1, One of the things that we have here is like starting too late. See, I just shared with you all the things that happened as it relates to the story afterwards. When my friend came to me and said, hey, real estate was the solution, that wasn't the first time we had considered getting involved in real estate investing. We started too late. See, that same friend had offered me an opportunity earlier, but that time it was, hey, let's do this together. And I said no. In the meantime, between the time I said no and the time he came back, he had literally earned millions of dollars, half of which at that time would have been ours. So I put a value on starting too late. More importantly, letting fear control my actions, control and dictate what I do and don't do, succumbing to it and letting it stop me from moving forward, i.e. not moving at the speed of instruction. It cost me tons of money. Now, in my case, I wanted to wait until all the lights were green because it didn't make sense. You know, I had what at that time, I thought it was fine, comfortable place to go and stay. Here's what I missed. You don't need to wait for all the lights to be green to get started. Here's what I mean by that. Could you imagine if what you did when you were going to the grocery store, going to get something to eat, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna go get something to eat, but I'm not gonna leave my house until all the lights are green between my house and the place you're gonna go eat. Would you ever leave the house? The answer is probably no. Oftentimes we wanna see the clear path that leads directly to the destination, and unfortunately, that's not always the case. Sometimes you gotta go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll see further. That one thought process, I know for a fact, cost me at least $500,000. So let's go on to number 2. When it comes down to making real estate and business happen for you, one of the most important things to understand is the documentation. Now, in my first transaction, I was very, very excited. I'm what you call a doer. You know, I go out there, I make things happen, and the details often escape me. So, believe it or not, even though I'm in the process of learning how to do real estate and I've never done it before, I didn't thoroughly read the documentation. And that resulted in the following. I thought I was purchasing a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I ended up purchasing a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. You're like, how is that possible? Didn't you go see the house? No, I didn't. Now, that doesn't mean you have to see the house, but it does mean that if you get an inspection report, you should read it. Because I didn't. You never know the information that is contained sometimes in those reports. And in this particular case, that was one of the things. Additionally, I didn't completely understand the mortgage documentation. And long story short there, what ended up happening is that it put us in a situation in which the cash flow that we had suddenly evaporated because the mortgage loan adjusted and all these other things. It's now a fully amortized loan, and that's fine. It's just I didn't know it was going to happen. And those were the things that caught us unaware. Not understanding or not reading the documentation fully can occasionally cost you. Now, understand this. Just because you read every word doesn't mean you understand the impact of every word. That's where teammates can come in to help you understand these things so that you can still move forward without thinking you have to become a legal expert yourself. Keep that in mind. When it comes to number 2, please read the document. And in my terms, I believe that to be a $30,000 lesson on just that one transaction alone. Let's look at number 3. Well, for those of you who have been following me in any sort of time, you know one of the things that I love to say is do only that, and keywords on only that which you do best, and hire out the rest. And there are only a few specific things that you and I do best. So don't fool yourself into thinking that you've got to do everything yourself, because you are paying what is typically known as an opportunity cost. Because you are trying to learn and investing your energy in something that you don't do best, you are by default not doing what you do best. Let me give you a quick example. One of the things that I struggle with personally is the whole idea of the accounting and bookkeeping that goes along with these complicated transactions that we can occasionally do. Well, a complicated transaction has many different balance sheets involved, many different profit and loss statements, many different debits and credits, and God only knows if let's just hope there's not a journal entry too. All of these things I know today, but the point is, how do you do them correctly? How do you make sure that the books mean and say exactly what happened? These are all things I thought I had to do myself. In fact, I told myself, I'll save money by doing it myself. That's what I said. Well, here's what I did. I was literally 90 plus transactions in. Now, I started out my career as a wholesaler. That meant I bought properties at a discount and I sold them at a discount. I bought them at a discount, sold them at a discount, and we did it quickly. So there's money coming in, there's money going out, and it's fast, and it's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time. 90 plus transactions and zero accounting. Now, here's what I learned. You want to get your CPA, your accounting, a bookkeeper on your team as soon as humanly possible. They are by far and away the number one person that you need. You say to yourself, but Jay, I know how to do all that. Great. I still don't want you to do it because it'll prevent you from becoming the CEO that you need to be so that you can go out there. Now, I'm not telling you just to, abdicate and turn your books over and never look at it again. What I'm saying is let someone else do the work that you are now saying is below your pay grade. See, we eventually, obviously, have to catch all that up and tell the IRS what's going on, et cetera, et cetera. And it took a while to make that happen. I remember when I finally got up the courage to engage someone, they came to me and I kid you not, they said, Jay, there's a small matter of about $400,000 and we don't know where that went. Do you? So imagine if you can. Do you remember what you ate for breakfast, dinner, lunch yesterday? How about last week? Do you remember how much it cost? Do you still have that receipt? That's just one meal we're talking about, and we had to go back and try to recreate $400,000 worth of transactions to understand where did the money go. Otherwise, it was going to be taxed, and it was going to be a really big bill. Here's the point. Just figuring that out. We're not even going to talk about the time that was involved. Just getting enough service providers on board to help us do that easily cost $150,000 to straighten that out. Ask yourself this question. Do you think a bookkeeper, an accountant, CFO, any of those people cost $150,000? So you can consider this a coupon right here. Get that person on board as soon as humanly possible. Sit down with them, explain to them your business model so that they know how to keep up with the accounting that is happening inside your business before you end up with a big bill. Let's move on. Number 4. As you go through real estate, in fact, one of the best things about business is the fact that you don't have to be the expert. You don't have to know all of the pieces. You get to use the concept of leverage. See, when I say the word leverage, though, specifically when it comes to real estate, many people often think of loans and money. Well, what I also mean is, well, what about other people's time? What about other people's knowledge? What about other people's everything? If they can do it bigger, better, faster than you, let them. Period. And sometimes what it means is that you want to partner with other people. Here was the lesson that I learned. I know that myself, I am mechanically challenged. So you put a hammer, a staple gun, a caulking gun, any of those devices in my hand, and bad things are going to happen. I can guarantee that. So therefore, when it comes to rehabbing property or fixing and flipping, I'm not the guy that's in charge of the construction crew. I'm not the guy that's putting that together. I'm not the guy on the ground with the hard hat. That's not me. So I was partnering with individuals who supposedly had that strength and, more importantly, knew how to run the crew, select the team, and make everything happen. Long story short, that to me meant I was the weaker partner. So therefore, I abdicated a lot of the decision making, and we did a 50-50 transaction. I was going to raise the money, bring it to the table, and make all that happen. They were going to run the parts that they were supposed to run, and everybody was going to be happy, go lucky, etc., etc. Here's one of the lessons that I learned. A partnership is the only ship designed to sink. By that I mean, when you begin working with someone, you want to start out by thinking about what happens if this ship sinks? How does that unravel? Because as entrepreneurs, we're naturally optimistic. It's only going to go up and everything's going to go well, and we don't like to invest a whole lot of time in wondering what happens if it falls apart. Here's my point. Invest the time. Because here's what fell apart for me. The title company went out of business. The contractor skipped town, literally. And I mean, skipped town. The floor in the building, inside the house, was gone. I don't know how the floor disappears, but the floor was gone. I don't even know how to say this. The individuals we ended up getting the properties from was eventually persecuted or jailed by the FBI and the FTC. It was crazy. All of these things, and then, oh, by the way, there's this small little thing of title insurance that didn't happen either. Now, get title insurance because then you'll get to know all about the process of what's called quiet title. If you've never been through that, you don't want to be. It's basically you got to sue everyone to say, hey, this property is mine, and if anyone on the planet Earth believes that they have claim to this, please, by all means, let us know so that we can pay you off. Because that's basically what ends up happening. And that takes time. Long story short, understand that you are probably the stronger partner. You can become the stronger partner, negotiate like that from the beginning, and most importantly, make sure that you think about what happens if the ship sinks before you start. I can easily say that in this case, that this particular deal, this particular transaction, this particular lesson is easily worth $200,000. Let's continue. When it comes down to something falling apart, one of the most important things you've got to remember to do is communicate. Communicate to those who are involved. So one of the ways that when you're in real estate that you're communicating, yes, to the partners, but also the investment capital came from somewhere, right? So you've got to learn how to communicate positive as well as negative or not so positive information to those whom you have a fiduciary responsibility. And this is where, again, I failed horribly. And the reason I say I failed horribly is because they had to call me in a lot of cases, and I promise you, I didn't want to pick up the phone. So that's lesson number one. Even if something goes horrible, pick up the phone. Because one of the things that I learned and heard through this was, even though this happened, I'd give you money again. And I was shocked. I was like, please tell me why. They said, because you will never make that mistake again, and you are now a safer bet. I was like, you are so right. Here's my point. Communicate. Because it cost me, the company, and it'll cost you referrals. That lost business is lost. It's really difficult to go and get that back if you don't communicate, whether it goes well or whether it doesn't, okay? And what I learned in this particular section of the lesson was a lot of investors, they understand that not everything is going to go well. You may be the one that's surprised. Oh, wow, this happened. That's why I say you gotta think about what happens on the downside just as much as you think about what happens on the upside, but also have communication channels in place. Obviously, today we're significantly better at communicating than we used to be, and we're always improving, but those are the things that I learned in that case. And I say that there was lost revenue, lost opportunity, simply because we didn't communicate. In this particular case, it's really hard to assign a number because how many referrals could that have been? Who knows? But we're going to call this one $100,000. $100,000. Let's go on. This one, for those of you, if you've actually already picked up a copy of my book, Cashflow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy, if you already have this and you've looked at step number 9, this is where the profit analysis quadrant comes from. I was doing deals the best way I knew how. And then I learned that my CFO had some ideas. This was long before I understood how to communicate with a financial CFO. Like, you know of a bookkeeper and an accountant. You kind of understand what they're supposed to do. But how do you work with the CFO? What's the difference? And this is where she began to train me on what that difference looked like and what it should be and how the relationship between CEO and CFO should go. And more importantly, the massive dollar benefit that you would be able to have if you have such a person. Here's my point. She would say things to me like, okay, so this deal is done. However, if you had done it this way and gave them this benefit, the company would have had this benefit. And I was like, wow, that's neat. She would say other things to me like, Jay, many of the investors, they're not cashing their checks. And I'm like, what do you mean? Then I'd call the investors and they go say, well, we didn't cash it because it's going to our retirement plan. We didn't have any use for it. And I'm like, what? So this is akin to a company when it pays a dividend. That's cash just not reinvested into further research and development or product development, if you will. So the same thing was happening, and I had to come up with a solution that made sense. It didn't make sense to me. How on earth and why on earth wouldn't you want to cash your check? But guess what? The people are out there who don't need the cash flow today. They need growth through appreciation. And if you've read the book, you know that there are 5 types. And you understand that. Here's my point. By understanding that and understanding it clearly, you have the ability to have better deal structure from the beginning. Now, when I look at all of the past deals that I've done and add them all up and the numbers of times that I've overpaid investors for paying too much interest, man, it adds up to a really, really, really large number. With that being said, I'm going to say that bad deal structure easily cost $300,000. Now, you may say to yourself, well, where did the $300,000 go? Well, it went into the investors' pockets. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, win-win does not always mean equal. Because there's lost opportunity costs for the company not being able to use those dollars that just sits there. And the investors want to just have their money keep working. So sometimes it doesn't make sense to do what you may think naturally works. Bad deal structure is important and imperative. Just because a deal is profitable, it may not be profitable, or it could have been more profitable for you and your company if you understand things like the profit analysis quadrant. Let's keep going. When we look next, this one by far, I mean, at this point, you're like, good God, how many mistakes does this guy have? Well, here's the deal. A lot. I want you to understand something. If the information I'm going through with you right now is like, oh my gosh, scaring you, and you're like, I'm just not doing real estate, great. Because that could be one of the decisions you make. Here's the point. When you are comfortable and learn to become more comfortable with failing fast, failing forward, and failing frequently, you have the ability to grow. So on this one, definitely, as I've said, one of my larger mistakes and something that I learned very, very painfully. It's called the single point of failure. That's that one thing you're hinging on. If this one thing breaks, everything else falls apart. So here's how this manifested itself for me. In this particular case, in one marketplace that we were working in, we had one person who was in charge of the rehab as well as in charge of the property management and running the facilities. Okay, here's what I'm going to say. Don't do this. Here's why. Because what would happen is that in the process of the rehab, we would go through and then do our checks, but we could be expertly led to the buildings and the units that were actually rehabbed and then told that the other units weren't yet rehabbed and more importantly were not, we couldn't go in because we didn't know, and which makes sense to some degree, right? But always check all your units all the time, every one of them, always. You're hearing some of the lessons already because it'll make it difficult to quote unquote play this shell game of where the money went. And then occasionally you could report a building that hadn't been rehabbed as occupied. So think about it. If a unit that hadn't been rehabbed was occupied, interestingly enough, if you were receiving a check, you wouldn't think to check that unit because you're like, it must be cool because, hey, you're getting the check. Long story short, we have learned to put lots of other checks and balances in place. We've got now a system whereby we use multiple property managers in any one location. We've got second and third layers of cash management, all these things that are really, really like high level, but really awesome. And going through this process, I learned a ton. I learned a ton about my team and how close you can actually become and learn literally how to communicate with your operations, the CFO. Everybody came together to make the company run, and it was awesome to see that. But a single point of failure can be very deadly for you financially. Let me give you an example of another single point of failure you're probably really familiar with. You have a job. Whether it's a W-2 job or a self-employed client, it doesn't really matter. If that one job or one client goes away, now what? This is part of the reason why we started slanting towards acquiring as many units of production as humanly possible. Is because if we lose, quote unquote, one unit, we have another 40 that make up for the lack of the one. Does that make sense? These are the things that get me excited today, is to know that the more we have, the safer, more predictable our income has the ability to be. And the same is true for you. Now, does that mean you got to learn new skill sets? Yeah. Does that mean you're going to make some mistakes the first time you do it? You better. All of those things are part of the process. This is why I say you've got to learn to fail fast, fail forward, and fail frequently. In this particular case, this lesson alone was definitely, easily being understated, even though I'm going to tell you $800,000. Yeah, $800,000. And the reason I know that number very specifically because when we went to court to sue the guy, that's what they awarded us, and that is the judgment we have. That doesn't count lost revenue. That doesn't count all the other stuff that could have happened. It doesn't count opportunity cost, and God only knows what else. The point is, it's $800,000 lesson given to you at no cost. No single points of failure. Now, as a bonus, I got to give you something that I know will help you in a very short while. So if you're going to play this real estate game, at some point, you will experience the joy, that's sarcasm, of a fire. It's gonna happen, all right? And it has happened to me more than once, and I am now really good, and the company is excellent at being able to process claims and understand these things. But here's what I share with you. One of the most important things you can do when a fire happens, if the building is still standing and salvageable in any way, shape, or form, is to go get an insurance policy. You're like, what do you mean? Well, occasionally what could happen is that as you have a fire, the existing insurance policy may say, okay, cool, we'll cover you, but we're also canceling. And here's what my thinking was. My thinking was, okay, cool, It's a half-burnt building, so how on earth am I going to go do and get another insurance policy? It didn't make sense. But it turns out that there are companies out there that would do this. Here's why it became important. It's because during the process of filing the first claim, what happened was the building caught fire again. And you know what that meant? That meant the remaining building was not there to be inspected, so therefore our claim got adjusted downward because there's no building now. The city came, knocked down the building, and we're just like, great, now what do we do? Long story short, get insurance, and yes, twice, even on a burnt building. And here's the bonus tip. There are individuals out there who literally fight for you on your behalf against the insurance company. Here's what I mean. If you've ever filed an insurance claim, understand this. The insurance adjuster doesn't work for you. They work for the insurance company. Yes, they're friendly. Yes, they're nice, but they're not on your side. The public adjuster, however, is. Many of such public adjusters work on contingency. That's code for you don't have to pay them. So call them. You don't have to pay them unless they succeed at obtaining an award or settlement for you. Even if you're like, well, I'll do it myself so that I don't have to pay them, still the wrong move. Because now you're going to invest so much time. And I promise you, you cannot, and I'll say it one more time, you cannot process a claim as efficiently, as thoroughly, as everything as them. You just can't do it. Well, unless you're a public adjuster. Here's the point. Go get the insurance twice. Talk to the public adjuster, because I can tell you for a fact that these mistakes add up to many hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you go back and add up all the numbers, you'll see what I mean by how it costs millions of dollars to not know the information you now know. So, I've taken you on a small journey of where we've been. I've taken you on what's happened, and you've gotten to see that even though all of these mistakes happen, it doesn't really have to stop you unless you choose for it to stop you. Now, I know you. You're not going to make that decision. Hopefully, some of the information that I've shared with you will prevent that. And here's the best part of everything that I want to say to you today. As many of you know, my intent is to continue. That's why it's a continual diary. It's a continual journey, if you will, with myself and my wife and everything else that we're doing to make things happen. Going to 1,000 units and 1,000,000 square feet and finishing our resort with our partners is something that we intend to do. And guess what's going to happen in that process? More lessons that are going to get cataloged, that are going to be able to have little points of things that can be learned from. And by learning from them, we're going to grow. We're going to become different people. Bigger things are going to be possible, and it's going to be exciting. We're going to create more clean, safe, affordable housing, provide more jobs, and help more people. And here's what we are now going to do. We're going to invite you to join us on the journey and watch. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do that with something that we call our Cashflow Diary Founders Membership. Inside that membership, you're going to have access to an archive of some of the best real estate information currently available in near real time. Here's what I mean by that. We weekly produce a show where I answer your questions. So you send me your questions, I answer them, you watch, boom, and we have an archive of this information. It is many dozens of hours of quality and actionable, keywords there, quality and actionable information that you can go use to write deals, raise capital, and make money happen for you. However, many of you also ask a lot, hey Jay, what are you working on? How did you do X? And what happened with Y and Z? And how did you find those investors and pull that together? And do you really work at Starbucks that much? And the answer is yes. So here's what we've done, is that I literally have a camera that follows me around intraday so that you can see all that happens in my day, the good, the bad, the lessons, the ugly, everything. And as I go through, I point out the lessons that either A, I just learned, or what I'm about to do, the marketing campaigns we're about to launch, how it went, whether it goes well or not, I don't care, I share. And you learn. We shorten your learning curve. If I'm having a bad day, well, you're gonna see it. If I'm having a great day, you're gonna see it. If we've got a check with multiple commas in it, you're gonna see that too. Here's the point. It's all meant for a learning experience. It gives you an opportunity to ride without having to take the risk. And most importantly, avoid all of the mistakes and duplicate only that which works. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to click the link below, because when you click the link below, it's going to invite you to a $1 trial, which is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. But you know what? I'm going to do whatever I gotta do to make sure you move forward fast. $1, 7 days, and you'll get some sample of the information. You'll be able to see the archive of the Q&A with Jay web show. You'll be able to understand the diary. And oh, did I almost forget that for members who are in good standing, one time a month, I'm going to randomly select one of you, and you and I are going to talk for 45 minutes about your particular business, whatever challenges you're having. We're gonna get on the phone and we're gonna do our best to solve them completely and thoroughly. And you're like, wow, with you? I don't care where you are. Any country, doesn't matter. Additionally, some of you have questions right now and you want to get them answered so that you can move forward. By participating in the Cashflow Diary Founders Membership, clicking the link below, you're going to receive a link and be invited to a special closed and private Facebook group that allows you to communicate directly with me and the other Cashflow Diary community members. Well, that means near real-time access to your real questions so that you can keep moving forward. These are the things that I get excited about for you. You'll have access, like I said, to the archive. You'll have access to the Facebook group. The diary entries will be emailed to you, and you'll be able to click a link, watch the videos, see the summaries just below, and most importantly, learn and be able to move at the speed of instruction. What we've got here is we have one person who's been able to take advantage of the information, and he's been able to, and I'm not kidding, literally raise millions of dollars. He's been able to do apartment buildings. He's been able to use the information that we provide to much success, even though he still works a part-time job. Here's the point. If you'd like to understand what it's like to walk in my shoes, that's kind of the purpose of the Cashflow Diary Founders Membership. You want to figure out how to organize your day a little bit better? Well, that's good too. And you'll see how I combine things to collapse time frames and make things happen in shorter time with more people and, most importantly, greater leverage. These are the things, these are the skill sets that I have to learn. And when I fail, you'll see it. You'll learn right along with me. It'll be awesome. We'll take the journey together, and all you have to do right now is click the link below to get started. It's $1. After that, it'll be $47 a month. The diary entries will continually be mailed to you on a semi-regular basis so that you can stay caught up to date with everything that I'm doing, what's going on. Some of the things that I'm thinking about right now are the negotiations on a cell phone tower and how to do a commercial lease, and some of the challenges that we're having in terms of raising more capital. These are all things that I do on a daily basis and often forget that they're valuable to share. So now I'm aware of you. You click the link below and I'll see you on the other side.
The day I met Jay was the day my whole world and thinking changed. Basically, it felt like he took my head off, spun it around, put it back on a whole new way, and I've never stopped or slept since.
Hey, Chris Brisson here, CEO and co-founder of Call Loop, and I'm here in Phoenix, and I just heard Jay give some real estate training. In fact, real estate has been something I've been wanting to do, and I never really pulled the trigger on it. I've been focused on the business and everything else, and I learned actually a lot about how to choose deals, how to choose a property, and these are things that I knew nothing about. And in many respects, I was kind of fearful on how to choose a property, how to value a property, what's a good deal to go after. And Jay kind of really laid it out in acronyms and a very step-by-step process. So he was awesome, full of energy, and he just kept going around. So it was awesome. And thanks, Jay, for everything you shared today in the event. So thanks a lot.
Love his idea that the deal is actually the least important part of that it's figuring out the other three first that matters most. And that's going to influence how I go look at real estate.
My name is Tappan Covidien. I'm from Sacramento, California. I am a fix and flip investor. I came here to see Jay Massey, because I've heard a lot about him. And I must say it is a fantastic experience. I highly recommend to anybody that is either starting out or is a prolific investor themselves. Come down, you would not be disappointed. He is amazing. I mean, he has not really left anything to chance. He has answered every question, philosophical, logical, and financial, and that's a very rare combination. So I highly recommend this to anybody.
So yesterday I had the opportunity to be a part of Jay's private training and was able to bring up a property that I had interest in. And the first thing that he did was he tried to understand everything that I knew about the property, and from that point, he put me straight to work. He sent me outside to go call the guy and get numbers on what I needed to know about this property. Came back in and helped me one-on-one with how to proceed with this property. And I don't think I would have gotten that anywhere else from a guy with his caliber. And I really appreciate the opportunity that he gave me, because it also instilled confidence in me that I was going and taking the right steps.
I really like having been here with Jay Massey. He's an absolute wonderful presenter, and he has encouraged me just by his presence and his deliverability. He has shown me that being here in front of real estate investors is an important asset to my career, and I think that now having met him and understanding that he's gone forward with coming out of bad things in his life and moving forward and getting better at it, that there's nothing that I can't achieve.
No, he has a lot of insightful information. He's a wealth of talent and information, and he's a great guy, and he's all about helping people. So kudos. Thanks, Jay. I appreciate all you've done for me, and keep up the good work.
I'm actually in the middle of trying to raise about $600,000 for a project that we're working on. And we've been trying to struggle, my partners and I, over how we should get that done. And when Jay was working on the Cashflow Quadrant and we were working on that, we suddenly had an epiphany moment. I think all my partners are sitting here with me. And we realized that we could actually get 3 investors that we actually know who have about $200,000 and give them the depreciation of it and a couple other things to actually make this deal work. So now we will be working on that on Monday together to get that finalized and start presenting it to our investors. So awesome, and probably just saved our deal.
And got a chance to meet Jermaine Massey, and I was just so blown away. My husband and I have been planning to build our investment portfolio, and my initial thought was to actually go and get an agent license so I could be knowledgeable enough to go and look into investments. And for what he taught me today, just for even the hour that he spent with us, was pretty phenomenal. I'm ready to sign up for his 12-week course. And what I learned most out of the whole hour was the fact that there were certain key things that you need to know. Either you spend time getting the knowledge, or the time, which is one bracket, which is usually the agent, trying to get the agent license, or you have the money or the credit. So that was a big deal to me, because I thought I needed to have the money, the credit, and the knowledge and the time all at once. So he told us how to figure out how to coordinate everything else in order and to be able to do it right away. So I'm really excited to build my investment in the next couple of weeks. And thank you so much, Jermaine. I appreciate it. I look forward to working with you. Bye.
He takes cash flow to another level that's unimaginable in terms of what it actually was meant to be as just a flat board game. He takes it and he gives it dimension and depth, and he adds some twists to it that actually makes it even more real life situation than it is in just a plain game format. So he takes it and shows you how to actually apply things. He gives you the little twists and turns that you might come across in the real life investing.
And one thing I like about Jay is he requires 100% participation. that everybody has to be involved in one way or another. And I really believe that brings out character in people, because it either allows you to be helped or to help somebody. And I really believe that he's a great investor, and he knows how to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And the way that we played the cash flow yesterday, I really like the way it was set up, because the way the game started off is that you started off doing investments on your own, and it kind of proved that it's going to take a lot longer to get out the rat race that way. So as the game went on, he started allowing us to do more things, and it kind of showed us that when you try to do things on your own, you don't get as far, or you don't get as ahead. Then when you start to work with other people, opportunities open up and conversations open up as well, and you might be sitting right next to the person who could fund your next deal. And without that interaction, you would never know.
The thing I got most out of this session was the cash flow quadrant, breaking down the depreciation, appreciation, the cash flow, and the amortization. It fits exactly what I'm doing right now. So now I can go and approach my investors in a totally new way, and I have even more to offer. So it was cool.
Hi, my name is Lynn, and I am a registered nurse, but I'm also a real estate investor. And I came out because I heard Jay is so great with financial strategies, and oh yeah, he's great with financial strategies. He breaks the mold, and he allows you to break out of your own head and out of your own preconceived things that box you in. So he's pretty great.
And today, being with Jay Massey, I've learned a lot more about myself. Some of the topics that we talked about were fear and greed, and I learned today that I had a lot of fear, but I can actually manage that fear to make better decisions and to be firm in my decision, and that I need to recognize and contain that concept of greed, because once I do that, then I'll be able to discern exactly what pricing I'm willing to accept for a home and what pricing I'm willing to actually settle for when I buy a home.
I really enjoyed the learning about the PAQ, being able to help people through realize a savings or an income from my particular deals that I put together, and realizing that I don't need to make all 4 quadrants. I can be real happy with less than that and have them be very, very happy with their return.
Hi, I'm Lisa Leese, and I met Jay probably about a good 5 or 6 years ago when we were both taking some education for real estate investing. And ever since then, I've watched Jay progress and grow throughout the years and grow his business, and absolutely take this to the highest level that I could possibly imagine in terms of what I would see with someone within just a short amount of time. It's been incredible what he has done.
Well, my name is Kevin Woods. I'm from Sacramento area. What I do for a living is I'm an engineer, and I know that that is not the way to create the long-term wealth that I am interested in. And that's part of the reason why I'm here this weekend, is to kind of gain insight from Jay Massey on what it takes to raise private capital, because I know there are so many people out there that have retirement plans that are not gaining the returns that they're interested in. So I figure, why not learn from somebody who does it on a daily basis?
What I liked most about today's event was I actually learned more about the concepts of real estate investing and how it will impact me and how I can actually help other people. I realized today that after playing the cash flow game, that the rat race itself is what I've been living all my life. And after being able to attend this time with Jay Massey, he's touched my life and made it so much better, because now I realize that in order for me to get out of the rat race and get into the real world of being happy with freedom, I have to help other people. And by helping other people, they will in turn help me.
The one thing that I really liked that he taught me was the 70-30 rule, that when you're talking to an investor or anybody that you're trying to sell to in as a generality, go ahead and have them speak for 70% of the time and you speak for 30% of the time, and with an open-ended question, and just lead them rather than trying to have your own keep. Do not go to the investor meeting with a deal in mind. And that's a big, huge eye-opener for me.